This is NDTV. And you're watching NDTV Hindu.
Very good evening to all of you. You're watching one show that brings you a power-packed half-an-hour bulletin of the day's biggest developments. So whether it's the finale of the grandest edition of the Commonwealth Games, death threats to a former chief minister, or criminal tendencies taking flight in your city, we have it all covered. Now the leader of opposition receives the 15th threat to her life from people claiming to be supporters of political rivals. What does this mean ahead of the polls? Our senior correspondent Peer Mohammed will give us up to date with that and will add some perspective to it. And crime is becoming increasingly commonplace in our city of Chennai. Our crime reporter will tell us about how to read into these developments. A very good evening to you once again. You're watching News Tonight with me, Ashmit Kumar. Let's first take a look at the headlines. 3 separate incidents of murder within the span of one day rock the city. Are we seeing a spurt in criminal activities? Jayalalitha is hit with 4 more death threat letters just a day after Jaya TV releases audio of phone call threats. Pro-Tamil leaders condemn the CWG invite to Rajapakse. Vaiko and 250 other protesting MDMK cadres are arrested.
Rajapakse காப்பதற்காக இன்றைக்கு காமன்வெல்த் போட்டிக்கு காங்கிரஸ் அரசாங்கம் அழைப்பிடுத்திருக்கிறது.
A neurosurgeon outsmarts kidnappers and manages an escape. Files a complaint with the Vellore police.
கூடிய விரைவில் 2 அல்லது 3 நாட்களில் இவ்வழக்கில் குற்றவாளி பிடிபடுவார்.
NDTV Hindu exposes increasing Kurubi traffic from Sri Lanka. Liquor smuggling in full swing. Does this indicate a compromise on aviation safety? And get ready for an action-packed weekend at the theatres. A host of action movies await you at the big screen. And those were some of the stories from in and around your city and the state. Let's also look at some national stories hitting the headlines. In yet another win for Yedurappa, the BJP has won the trust vote with 106 votes. Saina Nehwal's gold gets India back in second place. Saina scripts history as the first Indian woman badminton player to bag a gold medal. Lalit Modi is in for a rude shock. The Enforcement Directorate issues letters for revoking his passport. After the pitch, Sachin now dominates the rankings. Tendulkar is now the world's #1 test batsman. And finally, the Maharaja's wallet will get thicker. Air India's financial statement tilt towards the green territory. Now, receiving death threats is becoming increasingly commonplace and the norm for the leader of opposition, Jayalalitha. Today, 4 separate fresh threats were made to Jayalalitha's life. Now, this takes the total of threats to 15, with nearly half of them coming after the CBI was asked to intervene. Now, these threats come on the back of the AIADMK releasing the audio of phone call threats made last afternoon. The voice, spiced with a strong Sri Lankan accent, has threatened Jayalalitha from going ahead with her rally in Madurai on 18th of October. Many of the death threat letters are from people claiming to be supporters of Alagiri. Interestingly, Madurai is considered as the stronghold of the DMK strongman. Now, for more on this, we now go across to our senior correspondent, Peer Mohammed, who's joining us live now. Now, Peer, to add some context to this, to put in perspective, how do we see this development? How do we see 15 death threat letters to the leader of opposition right before a big rally that she's planning in the stronghold of the opposition?
Yes, Ashmit, this AIADMK has been seeing a lot of crowds in Jayalalitha's rallies in recent times, particularly the Coimbatore rally on August 14. Was a big success, and after that on September 14 also the Tiruchi rally has seen big crowds, very big crowds, and this October 14 Madurai rally is supposed to bring more crowds. That is what the ADMK is looking at. The ADMK wants to bring more crowds to the Madurai rally. Particularly Jayalalitha has said in the Tiruchi rally that she has never seen such a big crowd in 28 years of her public life. Ashmit?
Right. Now, Peer, we all understand that politics runs high on symbolism prior to a big election activity as we are expecting in the state. So what are the major takeaways that perhaps AIADMK or the DMK will have if this Madurai rally goes through as planned?
the ADMK has been wanting to make it a big success, particularly after these death threats are made. Particularly, the work is on in full swing to make the rally a big success. They want to bring more crowds than those in the Tiruchi and Coimbatore rally, Ashmet.
Right, Peer, thank you for joining us. That was Peer, our senior correspondent, again giving some perspective and of course adding the important fact that the AIADMK is going full steam ahead, is revving up its engines to take on the Madurai rally. So that's one important factor coming out despite the death threats to their leader. Now moving ahead, Chennai city has witnessed 3 murders in a single day. The latest being the murder of a 38-year-old man. He was beaten to death by his nephew in a family feud. RK Nagar police are investigating the case. Now, last evening, a 60-year-old man was crushed to death by a 38-year-old man. The Kumaran Nagar police arrested the accused after a 2-hour drama. The accused threatened to commit suicide as the police neared him. Now, similarly, 5 accused, including the husband of a woman constable in Chennai, were arrested and remanded in prison for murdering 28-year-old Shahid Ali, who allegedly misbehaved with their couple's daughter. For more on this, let's go across to our crime reporter Salim, who's again joining us live. Now, Salim, you have repeatedly brought various such incidents to our attention where the various crime stories you've brought to our attention. And again, these 3 being a case in point that the crime levels in the city are increasingly climbing. What does the police authorities have to say to the increasing levels of crime, of murder, of theft that we see in the city?
Ashwin, the police say that they defend themselves by saying that crime is not increasing in the city. In turn, they say that unorganized, there seems to be a surge in the unorganized crime. Say, for example, the reason for unorganized crime is that people, either the murderer or the victim is under the influence of alcohol. The police also say that organized crime is not rising in number. Also, the police very clearly say that they can see 2 common threats in these murder cases, not just in these 3 murder cases, in all the murder cases reported in Chennai. Number 1, the people, the murderer or the victim is known to each other in one way or the other. And secondly, either the murderer or the victim is under the influence of alcohol. Ashmit?
Right, Salim. So that was Salim, our crime reporter, joining us and again pointing out 2 critical factors linking all these incidents, personal family feuds and of course alcohol. Now moving ahead from that, the leader of the MDMK, Vaiko, was arrested today for leading protests against Sri Lanka's President Mahinda Rajapakse, who is taking part in the closing ceremony of the Commonwealth Games in Delhi. Now protests were also held in Chennai and other parts of Tamil Nadu against the Sri Lankan leader.
MDMK General Secretary Vaiko, leading protests in Coimbatore, accused the Indian government of endorsing the rule of President Mahinda Rajapakse in Sri Lanka. He pointed out that his government is under UN investigation for serious war crimes. Vaiko was arrested for defying a ban on protests.
ராஜபக்சேவை அழைத்து தன்னையும் தன்னுடைய கூட்டாளியான ராஜபக்சேவை காப்பதற்காக இன்றைக்கு காமன்வெல்த் போட்டிக்கு காங்கிரஸ் அரசாங்கம் அழைப்பிடுத்திருக்கிறது. இதை மறுமலர்ச்சி திராவிட முன்னேற்றத்துடைய பொதுச் செயலாளர் தலைவர் வைகோவின் சார்பில் எங்களுடைய கடுமையான கண்டனத்தை தெரிவித்துதான் இன்றைக்கு கருப்படி ஆர்ப்பாட்டம் இன்றைக்கு நடந்திருக்கிறது.
Supporters of the VCK, an ally of the Tamil Nadu government, also protested by torching an effigy of President Rajapakse outside Sri Lanka's diplomatic mission in Chennai. The Nam Tamilar party of filmmaker Seeman staged demonstrations outside the Chennai collectorate.
2009 மே மாதம் அந்த முள்ளிவாய்க்கால் பகுதிகளில் நடந்த கொடூரத்தை உலகமே பார்த்து கொண்டிருந்தது. இத்தனை கொடுங்கோன்மைக்கும் காரணமானவர் ராஜபக்சே.
These groups have charged Rajapakse with widespread abuse of the minority Tamil population by the security forces, especially during the final battles with the Tamil Tiger rebels. In Chennai with Peer Mohammed, Jay Santosh for NDTV Hindu.
Now here's one important story. Requesting a friend or a relative travelling to the Middle East or Sri Lanka to pick up some duty-free liquor bottles for you is commonplace. In fact, it's a general practice amongst many here. But after electronic items, liquor smuggling is now on in full swing. Sources indicate that this is being carried on with impunity with official connivance. The Kuruvis, as the carriers of the contraband are called, don't just violate the law. Experts believe there could be a more dangerous spin-off here, jeopardizing air safety.
Flying to Colombo has never been this easy, with rock-bottom airfares and a spurt in air traffic on this route. But the frequent flyers are not the well-heeled corporate head honchos or tourists who fancy the island nation. Look closely at these kuruvis or contraband carriers dealing in smuggling of liquor bottles and electronic items. See for yourself how the transaction happens outside the airport. Evidently, they are carrying more liquor than the stipulated 2-liter limit. We approach one of the handlers who's ready and willing to strike a deal right away.
Sri Lanka Saraka Vadakano. Sri Lanka Saraka Vadakano. Sri Lanka Saraka. What do you want to do? I don't
What's more, an airport employee tells us how traveling to Sri Lanka and back is all about the booze and electronics, and government officials are also hand in glove.
Sri Lanka, night Sri Lanka, but you don't TV. But Charlie அது ஏஜென்ட் நாங்கள் வெளியே நிற்போம் நாங்கள் வேலை கொடுத்தோம்னா பச்சைலாம் இருந்ததுங்க இப்போ உங்களோட பாஸ்போர்ட்ல வந்து அப்படியே ஃபீல் பண்ணே வருவாங்க டிவியா சரி நீ வாங்கி டிவி முடிஞ்சு போச்சு அப்படியே ஒரு வாஷிங் மிஷின் இப்போ கட்டிங்கிறதுக்கு ஸ்பெசிஃபிகேஷன் கவனிக்க காமிச்சு எல்லாமே இவங்களாலும் நாங்கள் எல்லா ஊர்லேயும் இருப்பாங்க.
It's not just these possible customs violations which is worrisome. Experts believe that this increasing trend of kurvi traffic could also lead to serious civil aviation safety issues.
The legal limit is 2 liters of hard liquor, and many of them carry much more than that. Whatever you buy in duty free is excess. So even if you assume that everyone's got 5 kilos or 10 kilos extra, which is normal, happening everywhere, that you on a short sector, when you have a flight which is full, you are looking at landing with 2 tons more than the permissible limit.
And don't forget, so much inflammable liquor can only add to the worries in case of a disaster, which some experts believe was the case with the Mangalore crash, when some parts of the air deck burnt faster and more than it normally does. Some argue that the increase in Kuruvi traffic is due to tickets being available at throwaway prices, making it a perfect business proposition to traffic contraband. As a tourist destination, Sri Lanka has attractive offers for liquor sales. No wonder a group of young athletes fell prey to these handlers in August this year. So if it was heroin smuggling not long ago, it's booze today that has become quite a racket. With camera person Lucas and Raja Singh, Ramanathan for NDTV Hindu.
Now, BJP tides over a second challenge in Karnataka, but will these smiles last? Find out on the other side.